Hello, and welcome along to this stream tonight. I hope that everyone is doing well. In terms of what I'm planning on working on tonight, it's going to be more of GitReleaseManager. So last week we got to a point where GitReleaseManager had a new function, which was the ability to collect all of the errors that are happening when you're creating a release. So rather than just having a single, there's a problem, and this is the one problem, we changed that up so that it was, here are all of the problems in this attempt to create a release. So hopefully that will help going forward. Hello Nils, how's it going? Hello Maurice in the chat room, good to have you both. So just before the stream started, what I was doing was I went into the 012 milestone, and I bumped a couple of the open issues to future releases. So basically we're at a point where we've got quite a lot in the 0.12.0 milestone, and I don't really want to hold up it getting pushed out the door for some of the larger issues that are on there. So one of them, for example, was controlling the output format of the release notes when you export them. That was a little bit harder to, it is, I think it's a good idea, but it's something that's a lot harder to do, because at the minute when we do an export, really all we're doing is taking the entire release notes from the raw text that's in the release itself. So we haven't really got an opportunity to change the formatting. So I was a bit hesitant to undertake that one while attempting to get this release out. And there was another one that I bumped, which was to allow passing in variables. So at the minute when GitReleaseManager runs, it does its best to grab the information from information that it knows about. So for example, the collecting of the repository owner and the repository name, it gets that from the GitHub URL. And the version number is obviously being passed in. But there was a suggestion from one of the contributors to the project that they allow passing in variables, so you've got a little bit more control over those. So I think it's a good idea, but again, I don't want to hold up the 0.12.0 release for that. So the one that I've left on here is obviously updating the NuGet API key so that we can publish this when the build happens. I've left that open. I'll do that as a last step. But the other one that I wanted to do was this one, which was the concept of the creation of an empty release. So this is effectively just creating a release with a version number, but not collecting any issues associated with that milestone, and not collecting or not expecting there to be an input file path to pass in as the release notes. So that's the one I'm going to attempt to work on tonight. So that's the plan. In terms of what else I've been up to, for those that have been following along with Chocolatey GUI, Chocolatey GUI is progressing along nicely in terms of the next release. There's been some really good work gone into there. And then I've also spent a bit of time on Chocolatey Choco so that we can start to get a release out of the chocolatey.exe as well. So I've been triaging and looking through the collection of pull requests that are on that repository the last couple of days, and it's coming down. It's fair to say I've been tackling the easy ones to start with, but getting there. Maurice has just put something in the chat room. I think he showed me this earlier. It was quite funny. Let me grab it and I'll put it into here. So this is an image which is programming 101. So there's obviously a set of multiple USB keys in here. If else, if else, if else. The switch, while true, just carry on. For each loop, nested extension leads, and then you can't really see it because of this, but it says try and then catch. So the The circuit breaker here is obviously popping when it needs to. It's quite apt, I thought. So I hope everyone's doing well. Pretty much everything's the same here from a COVID point of view. Not much has changed, although kids were back to school today for us, and that was all school kids here in Scotland have been allowed back to school now, whereas before it was only primary school kids. Now it is primary and secondary kids that are back to school. So I guess we'll see what is going to happen there, but fingers crossed everything's going to be okay. So in terms of this one, I'm going to jump in and get started. Unless there are any rabbit holes or squirrels that we need to chase after, I'm going to attempt to get this to work. So I'm going to start a new branch. Git checkout -b feature GH112. And we'll take that from the develop branch. What is that appendage? Our backup file. I don't think I've changed anything in that regard. That was maybe from me playing with stuff. Very strange. I'm going to reset both of those file changes. Again. Okay, we're back to beginner. So git status. There we go. Hey Kim, how's it going? It would be remiss of me if I didn't point out this as well. So here, I'm going to put this up into the here as well. So coming up next month, May the 6th. So the 6th of May, we've got we being Chocolatey have got a webinar coming up. So it's entitled Automate and Tune Up Intune with Chocolatey. So it's showing how you can make use of some new functionality in Chocolatey to make your management of your endpoints in Intune much easier. So if you're interested in that, registration for that webinar is open. So feel free to register and come along to that. I can't really go into the details, but it will be an interesting webinar, let's put it that way. So hopefully we'll see you there. What has Maurice put into the chat room here? Oh, hold on. I'm not sure how well this will come across the stream. A video within a video, but let's try it. So what are you building here? Okay. What are we going to have a clue, or do we have to guess what is being built here? These layers being built up. A time-lapse video of a 3D print could be a squirrel. It could indeed be a squirrel. What are all the different parts? Are they all going to go together to make something? Is that what it is? Kim, just fine. How are we? I'm good, thanks, Kim. I just finished saying before you. I don't know if you caught it just before you came on. I've got like one last issue going into GitReleaseManager that I'm going to hopefully work on tonight, and that is going to then be in a position to ship the 0.12.0 release of GitReleaseManager. So fingers crossed. And Marisa saying a new base for the MMU2S multi-material upgrade with some fixes. So how long? So this is obviously a time lapse. So how long did this thing take to print? It's 3 minutes 16, but what is that in real money? How long did it actually take to print all of this? I take it you've been seeing all the. I take it you've seen all the little things that Jan's been printing on his one. It's in the file. Well, so it is. 11 hours, 24 minutes. So 3 minutes, 16 seconds condensed. That's pretty impressive. Depending on how many squirrels. Yes, exactly that, Kim. So I'm seeing here this hole. So I'm assuming that this goes over one of these bars and things. It's all very clever. Right, okay, that's enough of that squirrel. So the feature that we're hopefully working on, Kim, is this ability to create an empty release with without a milestone, without an input file. So the suggestion that you made actually back in January, so January last year, was to have a -- empty switch that could be passed in. So that would mean it wouldn't need a milestone. It wouldn't need an input file. It would just go ahead and create the release without any content effectively. I have 132 videos. No, let's not. We haven't got time for that. No. Love the thought process, but no. Let's crack on. So I'm going to assume that in the... Did everyone see the notification that there's now going to be a 64-bit version of Visual Studio coming out? It's all over Twitter at the minute, if you've not seen it. So in the core, there's going to be a command that is create. So at the minute, create is an I command of create sub options. So when you're creating a release, you at the minute need to provide certain things. So milestone is false, name is false. So template, that's the new functionality. Oh, hold on. Welcome to 2021 Microsoft Visual Studio. Well, it's Visual Studio 2022, I think is what I read. Let me find the tweet. It was Tim Heuer, I think, who mentioned it. There's a blog post about it, and it is sharing a vision for Visual Studio 2022, and in there is mention of 64-bit. That's right there, 64-bit. Visual Studio will be 64-bit. The user experience will feel cleaner, intelligent, and action-oriented. So that's it there. If anybody's up, should put that into the... That's the wrong copy. Control AC. Let's put this into the chat here so that we've got it. But what are you using then? In the absence of Visual Studio, what are you running? Well, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, it's always been cost. Yes, 64-bit has been around for a long period of time, but Visual Studio has always been a 32-bit application until now. Finally, the VS software is catching up to the year 2021. Yes, agreed. But yeah, so what are you using if you're not using Go? There you go. Sounds good. Right, so what we then do within the program.cs for the create command, we will then attempt, oh, this is what it is. So if it's a milestone, we go down one path. Else, we create release from the input file. So I think what we need is another one, which is the empty option, is where we're going to go with this. Nils is asking the question if you're not using Rider. Also, VS Code on Windows, since it is mainly used when doing package maintenance. Makes sense. And he doesn't need it. Also makes sense. So I'm going to go into my create options here. and I'm going to create a new option, public bool empty. Does empty make sense? So what we said was, would it be allow empty or would it be empty? I'm leaning towards allow empty. Naming's hard. What do we think? I'm going to start typing it out anyway. So this is going to be an option. We've already used E. Hey Augusto, how's it going? So, and we'll have already used A because that's assets. So probably have it a bit verbose. Allow empty release. Allow empty release. So we would have control over what we make the separator, but effectively, yes, we could say allow empty release. Git does allow use empty, that's fair. Doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Git commit. Can't see it for looking. I know it is there. Can't see it for looking. Include. Git commit. Allow dash empty. Why couldn't I see it? Seriously. The keyboard. Yeah, that didn't do anything. Git commit dash H, select string, empty. That doesn't do anything for me. Anyway, Git's fault. So we're in the create method. The create method is talking about a release. So I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna say allow empty. I like allow empty. So option, I don't think we can put multiple in here, can we? Short name and long name. So we can't have multiple long names. So we would need to stick with, from a consistency point of view, we've kept it like this. So if there's two words, then it's, or multiple, it's that. So I'm going to say allow empty is what we're going to go with. And then we're going to say required is false. Help text is equal smaller. And then we're going to say allow the creation of empty set of release notes if in this mode milestone and input file path will be ignored. Okay, we've got allow empty. So then in our create command, we can say if options dot allow empty, else if there, else creating a release. So we're going to need a logger here that says the allow empty option has been passed. So an empty release created. Okay, so we're going to need a new one of these, aren't we? We're going to need task release. We're going to call it create empty release. I'll get there. Async. So what we're going to need to do this, we're still going to need the owner. We're still going to need the repository. We're not going to need a milestone. We are going to need a name. We are going to need a target commit-ish, I think. Feel free to shout if I'm... Would we want to provide the ability to add assets to an empty release? That feels a little bit... I don't think we want that though. Yeah, I don't think we want assets, would we? Just picturing you singing, Maurice. Yeah, I don't think we want assets, so I'm okay with not including that. So then if we go to here and we go to implementation, then we will get shouted at because we haven't implemented the other one. So if we come in here and say public async that tasks. Tears for Fears are way better than saying I can only make the dogs and the cats. I'm sure that's not true. Sure, that's not true. So really what we want to do here is a relatively simple, didn't put in the right place, did it? A relatively simple that, and then return of the release. So we own our release name. We don't have a milestone. Actually, what is that used for? So this is going to be string.empty. Whether it's a pre-release is coming from there, and assets, I'm going to say is null. What is that used for? Go to implementation. Where? Hold on, did I do something silly? I think I will need a milestone. I'll still need, it'll still need to check to see if there's one already there. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with putting that back in actually. I think I did put that in the wrong. Create an repository milestone. We don't have assets. I think that's okay. Down here, if we have assets, this one, I'm going to assume that there's a null check on there. Add assets is then being passed into there. If assets, so it's done there, so that's fine. So passing a null is okay. Then we create the release with an empty set of release notes, still passing in the milestone and the release name, and off it goes. He says. That was a little bit too simple. So we obviously need to go and say release is equal to await ECS service dot create empty release options dot repository owner options dot repository name options dot milestone options dot name options dot target commit-ish and options dot re-release. Or are you complaining about consider calling configure await? I always forget that. So at the end of all of this, we have dot configure await false. Okay, all good. Kim saying, try to check if it's possible to find multiple long options with the command line parser. It seems it isn't possible. This is another reason why we should start looking. Yes, that's true, and that's also slated for another release. I still want to do that, but not for this one. No. So if we do that, does that get rid of my broken build? Building. Oh, so we have a mock here. Okay. So we would need to do public task release. I probably could have just copied this or implemented it from somewhere, but let's just this. Say, oh, love it. Throw not implemented exception. Beautiful. Okay. that's just a mock for the purposes of testing. Now, if this works, we will want to write a unit test around this to see if we can make sure that everything's working. So if we go into the VCS service, which obviously won't work. So I do sometimes use that one. Let me be clear. I do sometimes do that one. I've had it not work the way I expected it to sometimes, so I've been burned by it a little bit. So I tend not to use that one. I don't know why. I don't know why. This is in core commands. What have we got here? We've got a create command tests. So we should create another one here. Oops. We should create a public async task. Should create release. Should create empty release. We'll get there. String name log verbose count. What's log verbose count? Oh, interesting. It's counting. I don't think I wrote that test. Log verbose. Let's run with it though. Let's see how many log verboses we have. Let's borrow some of this. Paste that into here. Milestone is milestone name, target commit-ish. We said that that's going to be, well, no, actually we said that was going to be null. So, no, let's just take it out. And then we're going to say allow empty equals true. Don't need this comma there. Our release name, that too. I don't know the answer to that question, Kim. So Kim's asking, any reason why we have the commands in the core library? Wouldn't they have been more a part of the application layer than the core library? So the CLI is completely flat, effectively. There's very little here. It could be to do with the fact that the tool is sharing. Yeah, that's probably what it is. So the commands are in core because they're used by both the CLI and the tool. So I suspect that's why that's there. So what we want to do is let's start here. And we'll start stripping it down. Why are you complaining? Oh, it wants a trailing comma. Okay. Wouldn't have necessarily. In which case, I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Create empty release async, which doesn't have path, doesn't have template. Turns the release. Result, wait, command, wait. Result should be 0. Should be create empty release async. received information. Some of these may or may not actually return anything, but let's give it a try. And we'll say that this is a let's go this ones. Yes, that's what it's doing. Failed. That's good, I guess. Create command test should create empty release. So it expected to receive exactly one call. Expected to receive exactly one call matching verbose string milestone. Actually received no matching calls. Received one matching call. String body. So that's entirely possible because it's so what's this trying to do? So it's making assertions on the logger to see whether the logger got what it expected to. Now, obviously, it's not going to have a verbose log of the release body because, well, we aren't doing that anymore. Well, it's not that we're not doing it, but we're not we haven't given a body, so we I think this one is invalid. So this is line create command test 32. Where's this? Oh, it's the method itself. So it's expecting release body. What? Let's let a breakpoint here, and let's debug. So we can do this, and service run. Oh, I guess I did that round. Go that again. Clearly doing something wrong because, or is it just no? Why is that never? Oh, because it's the mock getting called on, is it? VCS service is my VCS service, and that is a substituted one. So it's not going to call directly into that, which I guess makes sense. So instead, it's read it again properly. Receive calls accepted. Expected to receive exactly one call matching verbose string milestone. So that's this one here. Actually received no matching calls, received one matching call, non-matching argument indicated with stars. So it verbose output the body, but it didn't output the milestone. So if we look at the service and we do look at from the milestone, and I'm assuming in here there is a building release notes getting commit and expecting to see the milestone. I'm going to take that one out a second and test this again. That sounds about right, Cam. So, suggestion being potentially that as part of the refactoring of the command line parsing, we look to change that. Oh, no. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. So when we pass in okay, that makes sense to me. So when we pass in the null, so the null here is the name. So when the name is passed in, the release why would that object reference set to an instance of an object? So the release was never created. What it's saying? Release is null. Why is the release null? Oh, I think we try and find out. Cool. Not gonna work. Let's wait, push the wrong button again. Didn't allow me to step in, but that's fine, I guess. So go to implementation. Fine. Why would this return null? This is equal there. But didn't throw any exceptions. If it's a not found exception, create release model. With that, stop this a second. I'm not using the verbose count, so let's that out. Oh. I got these round the right way in terms of so um, I did, Kim. So Kim's asking, did I see an issue that he raised on the repository? So update CLI project to drop support for .NET Framework 4.x. As part of the history of GitReleaseManager, we also provided a full .NET Framework edition. My suggestion is to drop the support and instead make use of a standalone .NET Core project instead of the CLI project, which do not have any framework dependencies. As in, the way we provide the project, there is no need to have multiple frameworks and should use what would be easiest to use. So I don't have a problem with the suggestion, no. I realize I didn't reply to it now though. So obviously this is a breaking change, but let me understand this then in terms of would we ship a standalone exe though that will run on Windows without requiring .NET Core to be installed? Is that what we're suggesting, which is similar to what GitVersion does? I.e., what would we put in the chocolate package? Or are we saying only have a .NET Global Tool version of GitReleaseManager going forward? Okay, so we're on the same page then. So that will be a I forget what the correct terminology is, but it will be a self-contained exe that will probably be quite large in size because it will ship the version of .NET that is required to make it work. But yeah, in principle, I have no objections to this. But obviously, you've marked it as a breaking change because it would be a breaking. Well, in terms of the end result, the end result wouldn't necessarily be a breaking change, but would it actually? I don't think about it. So the Chocolate package will have a standalone Windows edition, and the normal package will have all three standalone editions. And the normal package, yes, makes sense to me. So why is this unit test failing? So we're passing in a null, which is the name. So the name is null, and in the absence of a name, we pass in the milestone. So the milestone is here, and the release name, because that's what. So create release async. When the name is null, we give it the milestone, and that's passed along as the release name. And then in the create, we are passing in the milestone and the release name and tag name, fine. So then when we go into here, how can that return a null? It would in the terms of the provided main NuGet package, as the paths will be. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, no, that's valid. Gotcha. No, that makes sense to me then. I'm really confused as to how this can return a null, because it's always returning release, which is always assigned to something. I mean, unless it's getting in there, but I won't really be able to test that. Where's my test? Test Explorer, debug. I think it's still thinking, right? Yeah. What's it doing? You did? You failed. Right. So let me debug it. Okay. Okay. At this point, hold on. How is it getting? Did it hit that one? Fine, go away. It did. The release is null, obviously, and then it's not letting me step into there, which leads me to suspect that this thing is not set up correctly. So I think my mock is not set up properly. Or have I done something silly? Why then does that returns release? And that should be this. So why then are why then does release? So the test is that we pass in null for the name, and the name is passed in here, and the name, if it's null, is set to milestone. So for that one, we're doing the exact same thing down here. So okay, sanity check. If I run both of those should pass. Both of those passed. So very confused as to what's going on. Options. Milestone, release name. Milestone, release name. Pass in the target commit-ish. We don't have the template. When we get to here, oh, hold on. There's some additional work happening here that maybe we're not doing above. No release name was specified. I wonder. That else if statement shouldn't have been called in that case, since you should. No, we are, but I'm wondering whether we're not doing the work that's required. And then we need to pass in this into here, which is going to be the same as that. I'm wondering if that's what's needed. I'm also a little bit confused as to what's going on there. There we go. So my question is that right? The milestone, we're saying that the milestone was specified. Milestone blah was specified. Release name is equal to options.name. If the release name is not included, then we use the milestone instead. Release name is equal to options milestone. And then that gets passed into the create empty milestone release. But what then were we doing here? Why are we doing this rather than just passing in what's passed in up here? Because that work should be done. I'm not convinced that this is right. That shouldn't make any difference, right? There were build errors. What's my build error? Release named context. Just taking it out. Options.name. Test. Need to step away for a while, need to reach the store before they close. Could be back before then. No worries. Thank you for hanging out so far. Git reference not set to an instance of an object. I feel I'm going around in circles a little bit here. So in one of those, we are passing in a null, and the other one we're not. So when we create an empty release, in the create command, we are saying that the release name somebody needs to pay attention for when I'm being silly, yes. If the release name, which is the name, is null or empty, then the release name becomes the milestone. And then the milestone gets passed through and everybody should be happy. But then on line 58, the release is null again. So what magic is happening in that test? If I undo that, release name. That's kind of cheating though. I'm not sure if this test is valid or not. I'm not convinced that this test is doing what it's meant to. Because when we come into here, we're doing if statement in here that effectively says if we're passing that as null. If it's null, we're setting it equal to the milestone. And then that release name is then passed along for the ride into here. In the exact same way that it's done here. But in the test, we're ignoring what the options are and we're passing in the release name. So that part is wrong. So we want to pass in options dot name. That's correct. That has to be the right thing to do. I think manipulating this is wrong. That's setting up the test incorrectly. Here we're arranging it such that the name is either release or it's null. Fine. So then, if we come into the command and the release name is null or empty, then we should get options milestone being used. And in the case of the test, the options milestone is milestone. So then when we come into here, this time we're using release name because yes, that makes sense. But then this is then returning a null from here. So milestone release name, fine. So then we come in here and then we say name and tag name, BCS provider get release. So I suspect that that's going to fail, at which point it catches this and we come into here, creating new tag with owner repository tag name, and then the release. See, I still don't understand how it can get I don't understand how it can get a null. But if I do the same change down here and say options.name and then options.name, then in my test explorer, these ones should be in the exact same situation. Is it okay we don't await the create release async in the test? Why would we want to do that? Deals with the exact same thing. You're talking about this one? Line 72. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're asking, is it okay? As in, should we do that? Well, it's not actually awaiting. That's setting up the mock or the substitute. So this is not, we're not actually calling that method. We're setting it up in such that it returns the value. So I see what you're saying. I think that's fine. But what I don't get is why we're getting a null within the test. Because it feels wrong. It feels very wrong that we are hold on. No. This call to this VCS service should be returning this release. So when we go in here and in the command, we call this, then that VCS service should be giving us this release back. So why is this giving us a null? Unless the parameters are different. Repository name, milestone name, target commit-ish, release, figure await. So confused. And is that why we're having to do it in that funky way? I mean, if I put this back in, then go up to here and take that out, then all of this is going to run, it's going to work. I just don't know whether it makes sense or not. I don't fully understand. See how it all works. Yeah, I'm not super clear on what's going on there. I'll be honest. What other tests can we provide some? You know what? Let's just run all the tests. Make sure we haven't broken something. I don't feel we've broken anything. So if I were to test this, test it. These tests here we wouldn't really be able to exercise these ones because we're never calling the build release notes, because in this new create command we never call it. So in this one we call release notes builder. We're not doing that anymore up here. We're just creating a release with an empty string in it. So I don't think we can exercise that side of things. So really all we can do in terms of tests is exercising the command option, that when we pass in the allow empty, we're calling this. And at that point, if we go into here, date release notes, release.body equals body. So in that case, we were passing in the string.empty. So yeah, I don't think we can do much there. But over here, I think we can prevent the duplicate code. So if we take this out, put this here, then this out. And this is going to go back in here. That just tidies that up a little bit. And then back in here, say run again. Build succeeded, running the tests. Done, I think. Yep. No milestone was specified. Switching to release create from input file, and if we go to this one and we look at its implementation, and in here we are calling read all text, and then those are what's passed into the release notes. When we did it the other way around, we are passing in debating about this one now. So in my VCS service, when we're calling it from an input file, we don't provide a milestone. So to be technically same, we should probably do it like this one is done. So then assets and pre-release. Okay. Then over here, when we do this, we're not going to pass in the milestone. I give it a name again. And my mock doesn't want milestone anymore. Okay. That's probably going to break something. For load takes 6 arguments, that's fine. We don't want the milestone anymore. So then if we look at what they done here, we just pass in the options.name, but at that point we don't do the check because we don't need it, because we're not messing around with the milestone anymore. Options.name. Options.name is never set. Okay. From here we go back to options.name. And then that comes out. I do feel I'm going around a little bit in circles here, but I think it's all for the good. .name. This name does not exist in this context. Fine. Name. And that is more in tune with what we do with this, which is name, release notes, empty string, pre-release target commit-ish, and assets, which we're passing in as null. Okay, back to my test explorer again. And let's run these things again. So we didn't break anything, but are we testing what we want to test? So in the case of the release notes, we make assertions that was it same assertions? We received information, Okay. I think target commit-ish, owner repository. We don't give it an input file path. We don't give it a target commit-ish. Well, we do, but we don't use it. And then assets are null. And then pre-release is also. Okay. I think, let me have a look to see what files we've actually changed here. What we've actually done. So we have added a test for should create an empty release. We've then added in some, well, I don't think we need that anymore, do we? That refactoring that I did on create command, because I'm not passing that in anymore. I think we can take this part and put it back into here. Is that where it was? We've taken the F, moved it down there, came there, everything else stayed the same. Fine. And then go there. Kim saying he's back. I'm breaking stuff all over the place, Kim, I think. So we've added in a new create releases async, which is now much similar to the input file name. Difference being that we don't provide an input file and we just give it an empty string. Create sub options is a new allow empty option that has that passing in just an empty string rather than release notes. And I think that's it. So I think I'm going to put this up for review. That's clearly not the... How do I get a... It's there, found it. Branch name 112. Add new method for creating empty release. This is similar to the overload for passing in input file. The difference being that string.empty is passed in rather than reading the contents of the file. Then no, is the answer. I haven't played with them. You're referring to the history one and the... No, I haven't. Have you got new ones for me to look at? Git push origin. No, we're not going to do that. We are going to do GHPR create. Where should we push that to? We should push that to there. We should add a title that is that, absolutely. E to launch Notepad. Let's do this. Description. Cut. Paste. Related issue. Yes. 112. Why is this change required? This allows the creation of an empty release to allow for starting the release process without having actually done any work. New unit tests have been added similar to existing functionality. Screenshots, no. Checklist. My code follows the style. Absolutely. Oh, probably need to do some work on that. No, but I will. I have added test the cover. Yes. All new. Yes. Save that. What's next? Submit. Continue in browser. Let's do the add metadata. The reviewers. Oh, hold on. I think I did that wrong again. What should I have pressed there? I pressed enter when I hit reviewers. Let's do continue in browser then. Space. Dang it. What I was going to do was that. And then let's check to see if this is here. Beautiful. Create pull request. Oh, so it's like check boxes. Right. Next time. Because I did the same thing last week, I think. Can't give them all away at once. That's probably fair, because I'll end up just looking at them. So what I needed to do then was look at documentation. I don't think we added. So in our docs, in the input box commands, we would then have a create MD. This is the main command used to create a draft set of release notes based on a milestone which has been set up in GitHub. There are two modes of operation so there are actually now 3 modes of operation when creating a release. GitReleaseManager can take as an input the name of the milestone to generate release from, or it can take an input of file name within the release, or it can create an empty release. Create a release that doesn't contain any release notes. It's empty. Required parameters. That's still the same. Optional parameters are now, we go back to here, look at our options, then we can say this one. We can say dash allow empty that, say that. Okay. Template is all the same, and we can say use GitReleaseManager to create an empty release. So in here we would do copy, paste, I'll come back to that comment in a second, Kim. Token, people, and then allow empty. Input file name here. What's the difference between those two? Input file. What are this? What's the difference between these ones? Create. Oh, with a full. I see. So we don't have any difference there. So let's just say allow empty. You're saying I had a typo on milestone. I do have a typo on milestone. That's a good catch. That means I'll need to go back to here and say milestone. Perfect. Okay, so those are the commands that we added. Configuration, create configuration. Nothing will change in this side of things because we haven't, none of that is function, nothing's changed there. The template configuration, nothing will come into play with the template because nothing will change there, will it? Have a quick look at the docs. So installation, none of that changes. Configuration, none of that changes because it just means that it will be ignored. The release builder won't take them into consideration. Commands, this is where we're adding a new one. And then we've added in the allow empty at the bottom. And then at the bottom we'll have an example there. Logging, figure logging, that's the same. Okay, so if we go back to here and say, do this, do that as rebase, we'll do this one, which is 112, is that what I said it was? 112, updated docs with new command option. Do that, sure. And if we then do git base -I on develop, change that to that, then do a git push -f, then hopefully for that I'm going to say resolved, and up here we've got 2 commits now, and then empty, happy days. API needs to be documented as well. Eventually, not now. Not now. But assuming that this gets reviewed and everybody's happy with it, then in theory, we would be at a point where we can ship the 0.12.0 because the only thing that's left is updating the API key in AppVer, which I can do. That doesn't need to be part of the stream. But we would then be in a position to ship all of this goodness. So all of these things, which includes the templating work that it was already reviewed, but you requested changes, so I would need to click the button now. There we go. The work that Kim did, which was to allow the templating of the generated release notes, all of that is then going to be included, so we can ship that. So if you wanted to we could click the enable auto merge button, I think, or you could, assuming that you're happy. And then, like I say, I think I'm not going to do it tonight because that's pushing it. But I think we should ship it. I can maybe do it tomorrow night. Maybes. What have I got on tomorrow night? Maybes. Maybe we could. So assuming that this gets done, what are we moving on to next week? So what do we want to look at next week on the stream? I'm going to put that on there. There's some chocolatey gooey stuff that I would like to look at. Where's my bit of paper? I had a bit of paper with, oh, there's the magic chunks. We should maybe do magic chunks next. Where was my thought processes behind what we're going to look at next? It's on here somewhere. We're going back quite a bit. I've obviously been busy in my notebook. Here we go. So I was going to quietly ignore that one. I did see that. I did see the failing test or the failing PR for YAML. I don't think we need to ship the next release, or do we? We don't need to include it in the next release. We could just leave it. Oh, it's GitVersion? Oh, I wonder if it's just picking up. That is a bit strange. No, can't be that. I was going to say maybe it's an issue with the branch name that is created. But yeah, I don't know. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's see what happens there then. Let's do that. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I'm happy if it passes, I'm happy to pull it in. But so the next thing on the list was magic chunks. So I'm wondering whether that's something I should really do off stream though. So the reason I'm thinking about doing that off stream is it's kind of a little unknown in terms of the process. So we haven't documented the process of releasing magic chunks. Sergey has provided us full access to everything that we need to do a release, but we've never done it once. So I'd like to go through that process, documenting it, and then if all goes well, just ship it. And then we could look to doing another release on stream once everything else is ironed out. I see what you did there. So I'm going to say no to magic chunks on stream. We've finished GitReleaseManager. So the ones that were left were the Cake VS Code add-in extension, the Chocolatey VS Code extension, or switching to look at Chocolatey GUI and some of its stuff. So initially I'm inclined to look at Chocolatey GUI because I think there's some work that we can do there. And if folks like Kim and Jan are around on the stream, then we might be able to do some of that work on the stream. Because I don't know if you saw, Kim, but I did rebase your PR, or I didn't rebase. I recreated the PR that you created for the switching of the language dynamically within the application. So it's effectively back to the point where you left it, rebased, well, I'm saying rebased, but it was replayed on top of the current headed develop. So all of the underlying project folder changes, the rebase was just going to be too hard. So I said, nah. So it's functional in the same way that you left it, but I think there's some improvements that we can make to where you left it. But that's where Jan comes in, because I would love to see the little drop-down combo box that you created. I would love to see that in the actual configuration section, the table. But what I don't know is how to apply a different template to allow population of the drop-down list by a number of values, because at the minute we just have a text box to allow someone to type something in. I would love to be able to have it as a drop-down list within that same section of the UI. So that's a Jan question. So cake.recipe VS Code extension could probably be something that should need to be done there as well. Probably cake.recipe VS Code. Yeah, there probably is stuff we need to do there. There's probably lots of open dependabot PRs, if nothing else. That could be a quick win, actually, getting a new one of those out. The other one is Chocolatey itself. I mean, like I say, I have been working on Chocolatey. There's been a bunch of PRs that I've been reviewing and triaging into Chocolatey Choco. So there's more work to be done there. Ignoring the layout style, the only thing that remained from what I remember was that there was a few static strings in the code that couldn't be dynamically changed. Yeah, I spotted that, and there's at least one other thing, which is the reaching into the resources, the embedded resources, to find out what languages are available so that we can populate the drop-down list. Because at the minute, you've got it kind of hard-coded at English and Norwegian. So we need to be able to reach in to find out what resources.resx files exist so that we can populate that list and not have to come back to it every time. So that's at least one other thing that needs to be done. So UI updates for it, doing that work, and then really just testing it. But I mean, it's functional. I mean, from what I was able to see, it does what it says on the tin. It's just some of it's hard coded. So we'll come back to that one, I think. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight then. We kind of come to a natural stopping point. In terms of a brief recap, what we have done is just taking a note here. We got the final, or we've put together the final parts of the final thing that's on the 0.12.0 milestone for GitReleaseManager. We've put all that together as up as a PR. There's potentially one last thing to pull in, which is an update to YAML.net. And if all that goes well, then during the week this week, I'm going to do the 0.12.0 release of GitReleaseManager to then get that shipped out the door, which includes the functionality that Kim has provided, which is the templating capabilities when we're doing the creation of the release notes. So that'll be good to get out the door. And that's all we've done today. We did show one of Maurice's videos, which was a time lapse of his 3D printer showing building something, which was to do with his multicolored filament setup, I believe it was. So that was interesting. And that's kind of all we've done tonight. Kim saying, I think my plan regarding that was just to look at which resource DLL files were available and use the native names available. So that was kind of my thought process as well. But what I haven't done is haven't dug into how to bring that stuff out. So I didn't go into any details of that. I literally got to the point where it was functional in the same way that your original one was. I haven't taken it any further than that. So that's something that we could definitely look at. So I think maybe looking at that and a couple of the other things that's on Chocolate GUI's to-do list would be where we would go next then. One of the other things that we want to do on Chocolate GUI is, if I go and look at the milestone, then on the 0.19.0 release, then I want to make Chocolate GUI more accessible. So I've reached out to someone on Twitter who was born blind. She is a Chocolate user, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to spend some time with me to go through and find all the problems with Chocolate GUI from a accessibility standpoint. So the long and short of it is I don't know how to make it better. So I can say, oh, you just use a screen reader, but what I don't know is then how folks navigate an application properly when they don't have the benefit of sight. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to spend some time with her to get an understanding of how the navigation works, what the expectations are in terms of, for example, when we flip between a source on the left-hand side, what's the expectation in terms of where the mouse goes or what is selected once you click on one of those. So there's all those sorts of things that I want to be able to get a better handle on. Get a blindfold and try using it. But so like I say, even that. So at the minute we've got keyboard shortcuts. So we've got keyboard shortcuts that will select Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, which is great. But I think as a partially sighted or no sighted person, I don't know whether the expectation is if you hit Control 1, does it then automatically select the first item in the grid on the right hand side or in the list on the right hand side, or is the expectation once you hit Control 1 that you then have to do something else to go into that? And then how do you announce to folks that there is the Control 1, Control 2 shortcuts? How do you announce that there is a context menu available? All of these things I simply don't know. So I'm hoping that by spending some time with the community member, that I'll be able to see how she runs a screen reader against Chocolate GUI to then be able to make changes to the application to make it more accessible. So that's probably going to take a chunk of time, and some of that will need to be offline so that I can spend some time with her to go through it. But yeah, that's where I want to go with this. If I remember correctly, this person is a colleague of Maurice's, so I might want to follow up there as well, because there was, like I said, there was lots of comments here that we need to go through to then get some feedback that we have improved things. So I need to go through all of that, but that's on the short list for being included in the 0.19.0 release of Chocolate GUI. So the big one being that, oh, do you know much about Wix, Kim? So the next release of Chocolate GUI bumps everything to Net Framework 4.8, but I can't get the Wix installer to work properly because it just doesn't support it from what I can see. Hey Stevie, I didn't know that you were online. What are you sending me? Screen reader is announcing an update to a status string or error.
On it. I don't know what that means.
But I don't know why the old Siri jumped up. Oh, welcome to you. Was the link that you just sent me, is that for a specific problem, or is that just a general screen reader suggestion? So Nix, I've taken Wix and nils, and I've mashed them up, and I've made Nix. Nils has just volunteered himself to look at the current issue. So where the problem lies, if we go to the product WKS file, then at the minute there is a check in here to ensure, that Net Framework 4.5.2 is installed. Now, obviously, we now want to ensure that 4.8 is installed. Now, the naive person in me just kind of came in here and said, well, I'm going to change 4.5.2 to be 4.8, and it's all going to work. But it doesn't. The reason it doesn't work is because the current shipping version of the Wix toolset doesn't include this flag for 4.8. You have to go to the non-released version of Wix in order to get it to work. But even when I tried that, and I installed the non-released version of Wix, it continued to tell me that, I don't know if that comes through or not, it continued to tell me that Wix Net Framework 4.8 or later not available. So the suggestion on one of the forums was that, oh, you just need to take the whatever WXS file that is now going to be included within the shipping version of Wix, and you have to pull it into your system. And it was like, no, I don't know how to do any of that. So I've left it as kind of an open-ended issue, because I have updated the new spec file so that we'll take a dependency on 4.8 framework. So Chocolatey will ensure it's installed, but anyone installing the MSI directly won't have that check available to them, because it'll only check to see if 4.5.2 is installed. But if you wanted to have a look at it, that would be great. Because like I say, if you look at the help documentation, then this one is only available in 3.1.4, and 3.1.4 is only available. So 3.1.4, it's not there. But if you go to the development releases is 3.1.4. The actual releases is only 3.11. But if you go to the development ones, 3.1.4 is there. But even that didn't work. So I installed it, ran it, didn't work. But even if this did work, that would cause us a problem on the CI system, because currently we install Wix as part of our build from Chocolatey. So if we're using a beta build, then we would need to get that from somewhere to ensure that it would build on the CI system. So long story short, that's where we're at with that. But happy days, we are now shipping Net Framework 4.8, and the reason we did that is because we wanted to support high DPI and alternate resolution for different monitors, and MAApps and WPF support both of those things as soon as you get above Net Framework 4.6.2. So in bumping to 4.6.2, we're like, you know what, let's just bump to 4.8. So I think what you've pointed out there, Kim, is what I found in the support issue. What I wasn't clear on whether it's as simple as that. And by as simple as that, was it just a case of putting that into the project, referencing it? And so that's where my kind of Wix knowledge, I would need to go and read my book in order to remember how to do any of that. But it might be that that's all that's needed. But Nix, as we're calling him, has volunteered himself to maybe have a wee look at that. So thanks, Nils, for that. Did that build succeed? That failed again. Did it fail again on GitVersion? Why would that fail GitVersion? So I'm almost tempted. Check the next link. It is a user that tried it. On the next link. I think this is the exact same one that I got to. Yes, and I read this and it's like I downloaded that and linked it in. I was like, okay, I don't understand what he means by linked it in. So I was like, yeah, let's just no. But I read the exact same GitHub issue that's here. So for YAML, Kim, I'm almost tempted to say that this might go away once we merge into the develop branch. So what we're saying, Kim, is maybe we'll be able to do that. I'll maybe wait for Nils to see what he says, and then if I don't get, I'll maybe go and have a play with this. But for GitReleaseManager, I'm wondering whether if we just merge this in, it might just work. I'm not entirely clear on what's failing here, but yeah, I'm tempted to say let's just merge it, but let's do that offline. For now, that's me done. So thank you for everyone for stopping by. I'm going to say that we can say goodnight, and I hope you all have a good evening, remainder of the evening, and hopefully see you here next week. Bye-bye.